Hey guys, it's Reyna and today we are going to be learning about another aspect of English grammar that is very frustrating for many English learners all over the world. Today we are learning about modal verbs. To understand modal verbs, first you must understand the concept of modality. Modality in the general sense indicates the expression, the mode, the manner in which something has been done or in which something exists. Now that we have understood that, let's begin. First, let's start with could. Could is the past tense of can. Now, one very common use of can is to express your ability to do something. In the same sense, the first use of could is to talk about a past ability. A past ability is something that you were able to do in the past. You could do it, but is incapable right now. Say, let's take an example where you could swim for hours back in your childhood, but now you're not capable of doing so. So you could say, I could swim for hours when I was younger. This is a past ability. Other examples are, they could play pool for hours without losing. I could dance very well. Now, the second use of could is in polite expressions, usually when we are asking for something or when you're asking for permission. Could I have that pen? Could I sit there? Now you can use, can, but when you use can in these circumstances, you're usually talking to someone who is your friend or family, someone informal. In more formal situations or in situations where you don't know the person, you will use could. Another usage of could is possibility. Possibilities of something happening. Say the train was late and it hasn't come in yet. And suddenly you get a message on your phone saying that, oh, one train has been misled into another railway. So you could say, oh, the train could have gone in that direction. Other things are, it could rain tomorrow. There's a possibility of rain happening tomorrow. It could be my fault. There's a possibility it is my fault. Would. One usage of would is when you're referring to imaginary or hypothetical situations. Let's take an example, okay? So, say tomorrow you have a very important meeting you can't miss. So, you're not free tomorrow. So, your mother calls you and asks, oh, can you come visit us tomorrow? And it just so happens that they want you to visit at the same time when you're not free. So, you can tell her, I would come to your house tomorrow if I was free. It's a hypothetical situation. If I was free tomorrow, I could come to your house, but I'm not free. So, I would come to your house if I was free. A hypothetical or imaginary situation. The second use of would is in offers, when you want to offer someone something. Here you use a very particular phrase, would you like? So, would you like another pen? Would you like a change in seats? Here you're offering them something. Should. Should is the past tense form of shall. Now first of all, the thing to note is that shall is not as used anymore. It's considered a bit too fancy for the newer generation, and so in place of shall we use can and will. So it's not that important for you to learn the uses of shall. Now, but we're talking about should, so let's go with that. Should is used in three different situations, which can technically be clubbed into just two, but then I'm going to split them up for convenience. The first is advice. When you want to give someone advice, you use should. For example, you should go to the doctor if you're hurt. Your friend got hurt, and so you're coming and giving them an advice. You should go to the doctor. They're hurt, so they should go to the doctor. That's your advice. Now, the next is a suggestion. Say you went to someone's house who they just recently set up, it's their housewarming, and you're going to their house. And now you've noticed that while the decor of the house is very beautiful, the curtains seem misplaced. they don't fit in that whole situation. So then you go up to your friend and be like, you should change your curtains. It's a suggestion to them. They should change their curtains. It doesn't look as good. And the last one is an obligation. Something you have to do. You are obligated to do that. That is an obligation. So for example, say you missed class one day and then your parent comes and tell you, you should go to class. Here it is your obligation as a student, as someone who's taking that class, to go to the class. You have invested your time on it and you should go to that class. May. May has two uses. The first is a probability of something happening. Now the thing here is, you use may when you're sure, when you're halfway sure or a bit more than halfway sure that something will happen. Say you feel quite sick today and you kind of feel like, oh, tomorrow I might be more sick, so I probably won't go to school. So you call up your friend and tell, I may not come to class tomorrow. I may not come to class tomorrow, or I may be absent tomorrow. Now you're not as sure. It's a 50-50 chance. Either you could be sick or you could not be sick. So both situations are happening and it's a 50-50 chance. The second use of may is in permission, when you want to ask someone permission. To be honest, you might have used this very unknowingly, since those of you who are at school or work at office places may have used this a lot. Because one very common example of asking someone permission using the word may is, may I come in? If you're standing at the staff room, may I come in? If you're standing outside your boss's room, may I come in? A very common phrase. Might. Now, usually when you're talking about modal verbs, you usually put them in pairs. So can, could, will, would, and similarly you come up with may, might. Like I said before, may is used for possibilities that are half, or you have a 50% chance of something happening. Might is used when there is a marginal chance of that happening. That chance could be completely negligible. It's like those small percentage of something, of a major disaster happening. So, for example, say it's the middle of summer, right? And for some reason, you feel this need to call your friend and say, it might snow tomorrow. Because to be honest, there's always that small chance of something going to happen. So, despite it being summer, maybe it's nearing winter, and you feel like, it might snow tomorrow. There's a very, very small chance of it snowing tomorrow. Now, let's talk about must. Must has two uses. The first is once again obligation. It's the same situation as before when we talked about should and obligations. For example, you must make your bed every day. It's an obligation of you. It is you are expected to make your bed every day by at least your parents, if not yourself. Now, second use of must is once again probabilities, but here it's very, very certain probabilities. 100% certain probabilities. For example, let's take a situation where you're in class and your friend has not come in yet, right? And you know that they come in a car, right? So when you check your phone, there's an alert saying that, oh, there's a very, very heavy traffic jam outside. So then you tell your teacher, he must be caught in the traffic jam if he hasn't come in yet. You are quite certain that he hasn't come in yet because he has been caught in the traffic jam outside. Will. Will has two uses. Well, technically it has a couple more, but then two are more important. The first usage is possibilities. Technically not possibilities in a sense, but then predictions. You're predicting something will happen by assessing the situations around you. So, for example, say you check the forecast and you checked outside and there are dark rain clouds and your phone says, oh, it's going to rain. So you can very confidently say, it will rain tomorrow. Here you're predicting the fact that it will rain tomorrow by assessing the fact that, oh, your forecast is set and you can see the dark rain clouds outside. It will rain tomorrow. I will be late tomorrow. Predictions. The second usage is instant decisions. Take an example where, say, someone is sick. Like for me for example, I'm actually quite sick. and my throat feels sore, and so I suddenly take the decision to, hey, I want a glass of cold water. I mean, no, wait, what? I want a glass of hot water. So then I tell someone, I will drink a glass of hot water. This is a decision I made right now. I didn't make that decision a month ago, right? It's an instant decision, something made right now. I will drink hot water. I will eat some cake. Instant decisions. Ought to. Remember when I mentioned that shall isn't used as much because it's fancy? And in place of that we have can and could? Okay, same thing. Ought to is also not as frequently used because it's fancy. In its place, different other words which essentially indicate obligations are used, since ought to essentially puts focus on obligations. But there are three other uses for it. The first is a strict recommendation. Now, say you fractured a bone in your leg, and you still continue running because you're on the track team. So your coach comes and tells you, you ought to be taking rest right now. This is a very strict recommendation. You ought to be taking rest right now because your leg has been fractured and it needs rest to heal. The second usage is moral duty. Our society is built on morals and other different rules and laws that we put in place. Morals are important, right? So it is your duty as a human or as a being or as a person of society to follow these morals. So for example, you ought to follow the law. You ought to clean up after yourself. It's a moral duty for you to do these things. The last usage is insistent advice. Advice that has been given over and over and over again. So you have this one friend who you keep warning about something. Like you keep warning them to not do something, right? But then they go against your wishes and they go against your warning and they do the said thing, and then something bad happens to them. So then you could call them up angrily and you'll be like, you ought to listen to me. Because if they had listened to you, nothing would have happened. This is an advice you've been giving over and over and over again. Insistent advice. You ought to listen to me. You ought to listen to your parents. You ought to be here. Wait, what? You ought to be here for this meeting. This is insistent advice. Advice given over and over and over again. Need. Okay, the use is very simple. It's necessity. When you need to do something. If something is very necessary, then you need to do it, you'll use need in your sentence. Say there's a very pressing engagement that suddenly shows up and you have to go. You need to go. So then you can tell them, I need to leave right now. It is necessary for you to leave. I need to eat food to survive. It is necessary for you to eat food so that you can survive. I need to take my medicines. It is very necessary for you to take these medicines. The next modal verb is need not. Need not is the exact opposite. When something is not necessary or when something is unnecessary or something is just not required, then you use need not. You need not attend tomorrow's meeting since it's not that important. It's not an important meeting, you have no obligation to be there. You need not take that pencil with you. You need not take that school bag. They're not necessary. They're not that necessary. You can always take something else. Be able to. Now notice this, I said be able to. The be here is actually the verb to be. So when you use it in a sentence, you will conjugate it according to your subject. Now, be able to, as the modal verb suggests, is used to indicate ability, your ability to do something. I am able to take more pressure than most of the people here. I can take more pressure than everyone else here. You are able to take that task. Notice in both these situations, in the first sentence I said I am, second sentence I said you are. To be honest, my real goal when it came to starting this channel is all based on experiences from my past. See, I started learning English since I was a little toddler. I have been surrounded by the language and I learnt it. I slowly imbibed from it, and everything that I'm teaching you now actually comes quite naturally to me. These rules technically don't apply because I can say it without having to refer to any of this. But what I noticed was that when we are talking about non-native English speakers, or just non-natives or people who have not learned English back in their childhood, or just who haven't associated themselves as well with English, and when they go on a little later in life and try to learn the language, see the courses and the videos that you get to see to learn it, is the topics are explained in a very, very complicated manner. The words used to actually say the rules or say the sentence structures or frameworks are much more complicated than what it should be. Easier words can be used, easier methods are there. So what I realized was all these things that I'm learning quite easily, other people are not. So the real goal when I started this channel was just to be able to teach everyone else, teach all those who I can, what I have learned in a much simpler and much more concise manner, in such a way that when you recall it, it's not that hard. And to be honest, to be quite frank, actually sitting in front of the camera right now and talking is a very daunting task for me. And there are lots of failed attempts, and I'm definitely messing up in shots you will never get to see. And it's times like this when I actually really appreciate the teachers right now, especially right now, because they're taking live classes and they're not messing up. Then they're being quite perfect in what they're doing, and it's at times like this when I feel so much respect for them. They have been teaching people for a long time. Live classes means that mistakes are bound to happen, yet they are not making mistakes. So yes, I really do respect them, and I really genuinely hope that everything I have said is actually up to their level. So thank you for watching my video and for giving it a chance. And I really hope you all have enjoyed, and I really hope you've all understood what I have said. Once again, if you really have any doubts, if you genuinely have doubts, you are more than welcome to tell me in the comment section and I will reply. So thank you, and we'll see each other again. Bye!